Okay, so this second morning session is focusing on results related to DPP information requirements, so the data, DPP data. So we have 3 presentations, including a demonstrator by Mario, and followed by a first panel. If the panelists could all go to the right of the room, that would be very useful. Okay, so over to you, Mario.
Can you hear me now? Does it work? Yep. Yeah, great. So good morning. My name is Mario Osterwalder. I'm co-founder of circular.fashion, and I will present you now the second part of the Product Information 4.0 project. In this part, I will look into the data availability and needs of different stakeholders, which we realized in a front-end demonstrator for textiles and electronics. How did we do that? We conducted 6 stakeholder workshops combined with a consumer survey with more than 1,000 response. Based on that, we created 5 user profiles, and based on these 5 user profiles, we created front-end demonstrators for textiles and electronics. And we validated these demonstrators in 4 stakeholder workshops again and 5 deep dive user interviews. Before I go into the results, first of all, what do we mean with product information? We see that in 3 categories. We have upstream information, which are usually created during production. This can be information such as the material composition or the price. Then we have downstream information, which are created during the use phase and end of life, which, for example, can be a repair event. And we have compliance and circularity information, which are aggregated information, usually based on information or data from A and B, such as social or ecological indicators. Let's look into textiles first. We see here an overview about the availability and confidentiality of information points for upstream stakeholders, such as producers. We see, for example, that the availability is generally good. However, for example, tier 3 and 4 or LCA data, it's not so good. On the confidential side, we see that, for example, chemical information are more critical, as well as information from the supply chain, such as supplier data. On the other side, we have the requirements from the downstream, so sorters, recyclers, etc. They have a need for information about the material composition, but also commercial information or specific attributes about the product. I will now look into different perspectives from different users, starting with brands and designers. So in the survey or in the workshop, they stated that they have a high availability of materials information. However, this is based on current legislation. But in case they would need to provide full material declaration, that is more critical. They often do not receive that from suppliers. And they also say that sometimes information is wrong and they have to retest. On repair and rental and laundry side, we see that for repair, sometimes they need material composition to find suitable repair materials. Care instructions are often wrong for laundry companies. So they need more standardization there. Also, laundries and rental services would like to have more attributes about the products, such as longevity, to better plan their operations and costs of services. And they also say they're happy to track event data. However, there are a lot of micro companies there for repair and laundries, which do not have the chance to always do that, so it should be optional. For e-commerce and second-hand, it's very helpful for them to use the data again, especially when they resell products online. So very helpful for them. For collection and sorting of textiles, they usually sort for reuse and recycling, so they have a high information need there to, for example, identify reusable and valuable textiles for second-hand, but on the other hand, also to sort better for recycling and have better material information there. And overall, it's important for them that they can integrate this in lean processes to their facilities. For recycling, for them, the current textile labeling regulation is basically an information gap, as they need full material declaration. And the requirements depend a bit on the recycling technology, where we still have a lot of innovation happening there. But for example, also like non-mandatory materials which are in there are crucial, or relevant aspects such as dyestuffs which are in there. We also talked to public authorities and certifiers. From market surveillance, we got the feedback that even for mandatory information, they are often coming in different formats and not in the required language, which makes their compliance tests more complex in the recent years, as they also have to do more there. For certifiers, they have a high information need, which depends obviously on the certification approach and the subject which they certify. And they say that also the information are often have gaps. So sometimes they say even a certain percentage of supply chain transparency is enough, for example, about tier 2 data, to give a certification. And for public procurement, they have clear guidelines, such as, for example, the Green Public Procurement in Germany, in which circularity information play a crucial role. However, as these information are not legally mandatory, they are often missing, and it's hard for them to compare products. From consumer side, we also looked at what is important for them when they buy products. We see that the design, for approximately half of the consumers, this is the most important aspect, how it looks. But also the price is very important for most of them. We also see that durability and longevity seems to be very important, as although this is not really available today, so this definitely a wish to have more information there, as well as materials and brands are crucial. We also see that 41% informs themselves very little before they buy clothes. On the other hand, a little bit more than half of them at least consider sustainability certificates at sometimes when they buy products. Now let's look into the front-end demonstrator for textiles. We created that for 5 user groups. We'll now look into consumer side. We start with a product overview, where we have some attributes about the product and the most important aspects from other sections. We then have the material composition, if it's coming. So, material composition, where we see aspects about the fabric, the main fabric here, as well as for, does it continue? Otherwise I will just go further. About the material composition, but also other components such as the care label or sewing thread. On the service side, we have care instructions, which are also a bit explained here, as well as information about where take back can happen, but also where they can do repair, and contact information. And in the last part, we have sustainability and circularity information with aggregated information about sustainability, followed by sustainability certificates, alignment with restricted substance lists, durability results, and some information about life cycle assessment. Let's now look into the results from the electronic side. Here we have, in terms of availability, again, in general, a good availability with exceptions for tier 4 data and material origin, as well as repair history. On confidential side, we see that information are more confidential than for textiles, especially for the material composition and information about suppliers. On the other side, we have downstream stakeholders which need information about material composition, also hazardous substances. So we need to find a solution there. Looking at the brand side, they have to declare that they have validated compliance tests, but they sometimes do not receive them from their suppliers. And some OEMs conduct own sample tests again, as they do not trust the information they receive. In general, they say the SCIP database would be helpful, although it still has challenges, and they see that suppliers need more guidance how to provide information. And they declared, for example, IMDS from the automotive industry as a good example where it's done better. For repair, we see 2 types of repair. We have authorized repair companies, which usually receive sufficient information to conduct their services. On the other side, we have independent repair companies, which criticize that they have a lack of information, that they could conduct their services better when more information would be available. So DPP could be helpful there. On waste treatment, we have collecting and sorting. They say in general material information is helpful. They have experienced stuff, at least for those who participated with us, who say, yeah, we can detect products with hazardous chemicals. On the other hand, if technologies change, it would be helpful to get more information there. And the SCIP database would be helpful. However, they say we cannot really integrate it into our processes because we cannot look up with a web browser every time what information is there. And they say that material information not always needs to be available from day one. Usually it's also good if it's available after half of the expected use time of a product, when material information might not be so confidential anymore. And the last step, crushing, shredding, and recycling, they also need more detailed information, or an interesting approach as an alternative was also mentioned that if the recycling processing method would be clear, assigned, then this could also help that they can process it with the right process. Looking at uses, we have the wish that hazardous chemical symbols are more explained. They're often not understandable, which was better than in the front-end demonstrator, and they wish that all information is in one place to find. For electronics as buying decisions, we see that the performance is very important. We can imagine this for an iPhone or a laptop. But also durability and longevity seems to be a great wish to have more information there. We see that energy labeling is well accepted and taken into consideration, and price and brand as well. Let's look into the front-end demonstrator for electronics. It's generally similar. We have an overview about the product specifications. We have then especially specifications about the performance indicators. Then we have the material composition, which also shows hazardous chemicals. We have the usage history, where, for example, a repair event could be saved. And which we don't see because we have the wrong version of the presentation here, unfortunately. We also have user manuals there, for example, repair instructions, etc., on another section. Let's look at the conclusions, which we received after we tested the front-end demonstrator. On the one hand, we got the information from consumers that the information are very helpful, but they are afraid that they're used as greenwashing, so they really wish for data verification and certification about sustainability performance. For them, it's also important that sustainable and social performance indicators are understandable and comparable to other products. Interestingly, also brands stated that they want to use that to differentiate their own products from others, and have an incentive internally to develop sustainable products. And consumers gave the feedback that maintenance and care information were more understandable and better findable for them. In terms of upstream stakeholders, for them it was important that entering the data is easy and doesn't create too much effort, and it needs different formats for different types of companies. And for them it's really a chance to digitalize current things which are physical, such as user manuals or care labels, which could save costs. We also see from recyclers, they say that material information is very helpful. However, it's important for them that they are accurate, that they are precise and complete. And on the other side, we see from certifiers and public authorities, for them it would also be interesting to receive where the source of data is coming from and distinction of primary and secondary information. As a conclusion, we have on the one hand information needs about for purchasing decisions about sustainability and social performance, but also more detailed information about material composition and supply chain, which are more accurate and more verified. On the other side, we have challenges that the data availability is limited today, especially for tier 3 material details. It will need investments in the next years to do that, which is a bigger challenge for SMEs. And we see that some information is IP sensitive. So how to go forward? We must strike a good balance between legitimate IP protection and the need for information. A way to do that could be, for example, aggregated or threshold information and the need-to-know principle. Stakeholders also agreed that the incrementally increased information requirements over time could be a good tool for that. Then we also saw that some consumers do not care at all about transparency. So this is definitely complementary to minimum legal binding requirements. It needs both. And overall, it was seen as a very good chance to digitalize the European industry in the sense of Industry 4.0. If you want to go deeper into this, a report will be published in the next months. It's longer than 300 pages. I tried to summarize now in 50 minutes. Thank you.